a taste of country station.
Country Countdown USA.
It's time for the week's Top 30. Hey everybody, I'm Blake Shelton, and these are a few of my hits.
I'll be your honeybee. Yeah, the boys round here. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country.
I have a song in the countdown this week, and it sounds like this.
Looking in your eyes now, if I had to die now, I don't want to love nobody but you.
We'll play that song and talk about the voice as I count down the hits with Lon Helton of Country Air Check. Right now, here's Lon with this week's hottest song.
Well, thanks, Blake. And our radio stations give the honor to Brett Young. Brett Young with the week's hottest song, Catch. But is Brett going to catch his 6th straight number one? We're going to find out a little bit later on Country Countdown USA. Each week, I'm joined by a top country star who stops by the studio to give me a hand counting down the hits along this week, and we are socially distanced by 568 miles from Nashville to Tishomingo. Blake Shelton's our co-host. How are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. I'm certain that even you don't have a sneeze that can reach me from that far away.
Let's hope not. And everything well there in Tishomingo, I'm assuming?
It's incredible. It's a beautiful day here, and we're all happy and healthy.
That's great to hear. So what's your surroundings right now?
I'll tell you what I'm looking at. Gwen and I are in the process of building a home here right now, but I've had my hunting and fishing lodge here for years on this ranch, and it's kind of been where I'd stay. You know, I pretty much live here when I'm in Oklahoma. But what it looks like is, you know, there's a main lodge area, just a big empty room basically that has the TV and couches and kitchen in it. And then separately around it, it's pretty much looks like a compound. There's these smaller, like one-bedroom cabins around it. Who knew, you know, how handy this would have worked out for us, you know, because we brought some of her family from L.A. here. They've been here for a month now, and they have their own room. They have their own place they can go to whenever they want to go to bed, and we have our big family dinners in the lodge at night, and it's really worked out pretty incredibly.
Well, as you hear, there's lots to do with Blake Shelton as we get along. Right now, though, we'll get things started at number 30. Here's Thomas Rhett, Be a Light. That's Thomas Rhett, along with a bunch of friends, leading off the week's top 30, Be a Light. My countdown co-host this week is Blake Shelton from Tishomingo, Oklahoma. Your top 5 hit is Nobody But You. I want to go back, though, and talk about God's Country here, because this was a huge number one song last year. But I had heard a little bit that maybe you weren't as energized about your music career at one point than you were earlier in your career, but that this kind of brought it back to you. Is that true?
You're exactly right, and also to add to that, I was a little bit confused as far as, you know, what is the music industry anymore? I know what the touring industry is and that side of it, but you know, what is this streaming thing? What you know, what is? How come we can't sell records like we used to? And I was here working on this ranch where I'm sitting right now, and Scott Hendricks said, "Man, what do you want? What are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, can I send you some songs?" And I go, "Hell yeah, I don't want to hear anything, you know." And the first thing that he sent me was God's Country, and it was like it erased any things that I had, you know, from the dark cloud that the pity party I was kind of having. It was like, wait a minute. Now I know what I want to do. I want to make records like that. That's going to get me excited, you know. And then, just like always, how lucky I've been, it just the cards fell where they did, and that song ended up doing what it did. And it even got me back in the awards game, you know, which I for sure thought that had kind of passed me by, you know. So
well, CMA Single of the Year, God's Country.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me.
Yeah. Ashley Mcbride at number 29, One Night Standards. I'm Lon Helton, and coming up, the favorite artist of my co-host, Blake Shelton. Gone West at number 28, What Could Have Been. Blake Shelton's my countdown co-host this week, and you know, Blake, a lot of folks in here have been talking about you, including the guys in Old Dominion. And when they were in here as my co-host, they talked about seeing you at the CMA Awards.
We saw him backstage after we had won the award, and he
crashed his interview there.
Oh, yeah. Well, he had won his award, too. And it's always weird because, Blake Shelton is such a huge star and was before we were ever on the scene. So he saw us and stopped us and told us we were his favorite artist. And it was really complimentary. He was like, I don't mean band. I mean, my favorite artist, hands down. I'm serious. I listen to it all the time. And things like that are still weird for me to see somebody like that I've watched since before we were ever even part of the conversation.
Maybe we should do a collaboration with him.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
There you go.
I wish they would ask me. That would be incredible. One of those guys is a co-writer on Sangria. And at the time, Old Dominion, they probably had their first single out, and I didn't really put it all together, oh, that's the guy in the band. But over the years, every single one of their songs they've released, I just think they're creative. They have a new vision. They don't sound like anybody else. I just think their songs are extremely well crafted. And I'm just a fan, They're without a question my favorite new artist out in country music.
Florida Georgia Line up 4 to number 26. I Love My Country. My co-host this week is Blake Shelton. We're talking to him from his home in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. Are you getting your hair cut during our conversation?
No, you know what? I don't think I can get that much shorter on the sides because it seems like every time we do some kind of a on-camera interview, it's like, hey, there's nothing else to talk about anymore. Let's cut my hair again. So now we're down to pretty much skin on the sides and just waiting the mullet out on the back.
Of course, what we're talking about is the other night when you were on the Jimmy Fallon show, I think the whole interview was Gwen cutting your hair, as you said, on the sides. Was that real? Was she really cutting your hair?
Oh, buddy, let me tell you, yes. My hair on the sides is probably like 1/8 of an inch or less. Like it is. I haven't had it this short since I was probably 10 years old on the side. There's only one. It's down to what's the smallest guard you can have on the clippers. It's that one. Yeah.
that was a pretty funny bit for the whole interview, I thought. Anyway, along with Blake Shelton, it's back to the countdown to 25. It's Chase Rice, Lonely If You Are. Chase Rice again at number 25, Lonely If You Are. My co-host is Blake Shelton. He's coming to us live from his home in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. And Blake, up next is the latest from Chris Jansen. And when he was in here as my co-host, he told me that you're singing with him on his album called Real Friends.
Before I picked it for the album title, I said this would be a great duet with Blake. And then, we asked Blake, and he was like, yes. And so now we got a great duet. And he is a real friend, and the title track is more than just a title track. It's actually something that, I think we both feel very invested in, and it was just, when you hear somebody's vocal on a duet, you can tell if they really wanted to do it or not. I mean, you can really tell. And he, it was really cool.
Chris is one of those acts that he just will not take no for an answer. Probably just in life in general, But
yeah.
If you've never seen Chris Jansen on stage, I mean, the guy must take it personal if you're not into it, because he comes up there with the force of the entire U.S. military, with his harmonica, his guitar, his energy level, like his foot stomping, it's the most epic, incredible. Mm-hmm. It's like the Tasmanian devil has gotten loose on stage, and so I took him out on tour with me a few years back, and there was no way with that kind of talent and that much passion that Chris Jansen wasn't going to make it in country music. It's just, I've never seen anything like it before.
Oh, I know. I get tired just watching his show. And of course, the guy we're talking about is Chris Jansen. He's at 24 with Maddie and Tay up 1 to number 23, Die From a Broken Heart. Blake Shelton's in here as my co-host this week. And, of course, as I mentioned, we're talking to you from your home in Oklahoma. I imagine you're going to probably do something like this for the Voice Live things, aren't you?
Yeah. And in fact, we got to start that next week, because half of what we do, or actually more than probably 75% of what we do on that show, is rehearse as coaches, with our contestants, and now we're going to have to do it virtually which is going to, I still have no clue how this is going to work, but they already have it planned out. They've tested it. The band, I guess they're on the computer somehow and they're playing along, and it's amazing. I would say not that many years ago, if something like this would have happened, we would have just had to cancel the show. I mean, but now because of all this cool, crazy technology, the show, like they say, it must go on, and my God, it is.
I know. That's fascinating. And we will come back and talk some more about The Voice as we get along. Right now, back to the countdown with my co-host Blake Shelton. At 22, it's Michael Ray, Her World or Mine. Justin Moore, once again at number 20, Why We Drink. My co-host is Blake Shelton. He is coming to us from his home in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, along with your own hits, of course. You've had a number of duets that we talked about before, including Dive Bar with Mr. Garth Brooks. And when he was in here as my co-host, he was telling me why he wanted you to be on Dive Bar.
What got me was I saw him on the ACMs, and he's doing God's Country on the ACMs. But his face, a great singer will be listening to what they're singing, no matter how many times they've sang it. And you could tell what he was singing was connecting with him as an entertainer and as a listener. And I just called him up because it touched me. Called him up and said, hey, man, it's a great performance. Travis said, would you ever think about doing a duet? And what I loved about it was his answer was, hell yeah, let's do a duet. And Dive Bar was the perfect one.
That was one of the craziest nights of my life, because my manager texted me and said, hey, man, Garth Brooks wants to talk to you. Is it okay if I send him your phone number or you his phone number? And I was like, yeah. Because as long as I've been doing this, Garth has kind of been one of those guys that, still never been around at that point. And also one of my heroes, so he's just kind of like George Strait, it's like where you never get to see this guy, and he's the biggest deal in the world to me. And so when he ended the conversation, he said, hey man, also I got this song that, if you ever want to be interested in doing a duet, that maybe I'd like for you to hear or whatever. And I just said, Garth, of course I want you to send the song, but yes is the answer. Way before I even heard the song, I said, absolutely, I want to be able to know that I had a chance to work with Garth Brooks, and of course he sent me the song. I love the song. It ended up being perfect for he and I both, and I told him, the song reminded me of Friends in Low Places a lot anyway, and which is obviously the world's favorite song, so it was a blast.
Keith Urban up 1 at number 18, God Whispered Your Name. Blake Shelton's my co-host this week. We've been talking about The Voice throughout the show, and a couple weeks ago, you had a very special mega mentor on with you, James Taylor. That was cool.
I got to say, I've met a lot of people being a part of that show that I've looked up to and considered to be icons and heroes. But James Taylor is he's the kindest and funny. He's just a really cool guy to be around, and of course there's no way to not kind of geek out around him. I found myself asking him questions that I dread when people ask me, like, hey, play me that intro to Mexico. How do you do that, And after I said it, I'm like, oh, what am I doing, But you can't help it in those situations. Everybody knows a James Taylor song, at least one that they don't just know, but they love. And so it was cool to see him getting that kind of reaction, even from the kids, the ones I consider kids, the 20-year-olds, the 18-year-olds on the show.
Well, as we get along, we will come back and talk a lot more about The Voice with my co-host Blake Shelton as we head back to the countdown at number 17, Low Cash, 1. Carrie Underwood up 1 at number 15, Drinking Alone. My co-host this week is Blake Shelton, coming to us from his home in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. Up next on the chart is Luke Bryan, and when he was in here as my co-host, he was telling us about visiting you there.
I just think the world of Blake. He did 2 years of Crash My Playa. I'd be like, Blake, man, tell me what I can do to make this up to you. He'd be like, I'll get you one of these days. He goes, I'll get you down to Tishomingo. And I didn't know what he was talking about. He kept saying this Indian name, and I was like, Tishomingo, whatever. I didn't know what he had going on down there. Well, finally he called me and he goes, hey, I'm opening an Old Red in Tishomingo. He goes, will you come be a part of the grand opening? I said, man, I'd love to. And for years, I had wanted to get down there and see his ranch. I took Bo and Tate, and they got to hang with Gwen's youngest. His name's Apollo, and he's like the cutest little thing ever type situation. The main thing is it was just really fun getting to hang with him and Gwen for a day and a half.
Yeah, it was an amazing couple of days when Luke was here because, his son would get so comfortable because he doesn't know who Gwen Stefani is as far as on that level, and I remember a couple of times. And Gwen is just this way. She takes over the household, and she loves that. She just naturally walks in and does it. And I remember a couple times I heard Luke go, Bo, no, what are you doing? I go, what happened? He goes, he asked Gwen to make him a sandwich. I go, well, what's wrong with that? He goes, well, that's Gwen Stefani. You gotta ask Gwen Stefani. I said, well, that's what she's in. She loves it, what's the deal? Well, I was cracking up about that. I remember when Luke asked me to do Crash My Playa, I'd rather have a IOU from Luke Bryan in my back pocket because I know it'll come in handy one of these days. So come to think of it, I still got one more. I wonder what I'll do with that one. Need to think hard on that.
You got any other old Reds opening anywhere soon?
I'm sure we will.
We're talking about Luke Bryan, who's next at 14, What She Wants Tonight. Co-host this week is Blake Shelton, and of course, as we've said, you are coming to us from your home in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. And you know what strikes me? Your schedule, the last 7, 8, 9 years has been so nuts. I was thinking you might actually be loving a little break of being in one place for a little while. Listen, and
I have to be really careful how I say this because you know how they chew things up and spit them out there. But I got to say, I have been dreaming and looking forward to a month, 2 months vacation for 20 years now. Like just one of those, just shut it down. Of course, who in the world doesn't hope for that,
Yeah.
But it's just always been in the back of my mind, like, man, someday I'd like to just shut everything down. And, lo and behold, I didn't have a choice in the matter, but it happened. And I have never been able to get so many things done, so many things that I've wanted to do, Everywhere I look, I think, man, there could be a garden there, too. I mean, my property is destroyed with plowed up gardens, fenced off areas for chickens, just... when this thing is over with, it's going to look like a junkyard out here, but it's been a lot of fun.
Well, it sounds like other people are turning your farm into a junkyard. I want to find out what you do every day, and we'll do that with our co-host Blake Shelton after we hear number 11, Maren Morris, Carly Pearson, Lee Brice at number 10, I Hope You're Happy Now. Blake Shelton's my co-host this week, coming to us from his home in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, farm, really. And a bit ago, you're telling us about how other people are turning your place to a junkyard. What's your typical day there? What do you do all day?
I wake up usually about 45 minutes before everybody else, and I have coffee, and I'm not kidding. I love to farm, and so I got in, and of course we've been here so long that I put in about 15 or 20 acres of corn, and really? I did it a little bit early just because I was excited to do it, and now we had a big frost here a few days ago, so my last few days have been just obsessively driving to my corn, seeing how bad the frost damaged it. So that's what I do. Garden, fish. It's turkey season here in Oklahoma, and I drink. And I drank today, Lon. I drank today.
It is early where we're doing this, though. It is 5 o'clock somewhere, I guess.
Doesn't matter. I have the day off, just like the rest of this month.
Well, I guess that's a rather appropriate introduction then to our next song at number 9. It's Travis Denning, After a Few. Travis Denning moving up 3 to number 9, which gives him his very first top 10 hit, After a Few. My co-host is Blake Shelton. Your current hit with Gwen Stefani is still ahead in the top 5. But reminds me, you've had a bunch of duets lately. I mean, what's that all about?
I'm to the point in my career and just my life in general that, when it comes to making records, the only guideline for me is I want to record the songs that I love with the people I love. And I'm having a blast doing that. And that's why, the last single was with Trace. Still making records with Scott, who's one of my best friends. It's just
Scott Hendricks,
and just doing what it is that keeping me excited about going in and recording. And these collaborations, have been a blast for me. It kind of keeps me on the edge of my seat to to see how people react to them when they come out. And we still got more that's coming, and I can't wait.
Jordan Davis in last week's number 7 this week, Slow Dance in a Parking Lot. My co-host is Blake Shelton, and Blake, a few weeks ago, Kelsey Ballerini was in here, and she was talking about mentoring contestants on The Voice.
I didn't really feel like it was my job to give advice, but what I realized while doing this and coaching these incredible artists was that what I had to offer was a perspective as a new artist, whereas like when they ended up going to Blake or Kelly or whoever, they're getting advice from a superstar, which is another perspective that I don't have, you know? So it was really interesting for me to kind of dig into like, all right, Kels, what have you learned the last 4 years that they're potentially going to walk through in the next 4 years, you know? Like this is something that you can offer that they can use tomorrow. And then also this last season, I was Kelly's advisor. So I've been around The Voice a lot actually, but not around Blake a lot. I was team.
Ingrid Andress, again at number 5, More Hearts Than Mine. Blake Shelton is my co-host, and up next, number 4, is Morgan Wallen. Before we get to Morgan, I'm going to play you this clip from Little Big Town, who put you and Morgan together.
He and Kimberly wore matching mullets for the CMT Awards. Well, his is real, hers is not.
I enjoyed that.
You look good in a mullet,
Very
Kimberly.
much.
Morgan's is like full-on mullet.
Unapologetic.
In a very but in a very fashion-forward way. I love it.
Unapologetic mullet.
That's good.
I'm just waiting for Blake.
That's a song.
I'm waiting for Blake to bring his back.
I've been growing my hair out so I can cut it in a mullet.
You could, Philip.
I don't think Gwen Stefani will let Blake bring the mullet back.
Yeah, maybe not.
Well, I will say Little Big Town, that sounded like Kimberly, but she's dead wrong, because Gwen Stefani is spurring on this mullet thing in ways that I could have never imagined. And I think it's just something gangster about it. To her, a mullet is like, oh, nobody's doing that, you got to do that, you know. And between you and me and your millions of listeners, this thing will go away when my quarantine goes away. I don't plan on wheeling it out there. I wouldn't put the public through that. But it all started because, and I'm glad you mentioned Morgan, because, and I don't know Morgan that well. We've said hi a couple of times, and I know he was on The Voice, but he was on Adam's team. But he struck a jealous bone with me, because it was like, man, how come he gets to have his mullet and I had to cut mine off? You know, this is bull crap. And it was like, and the thing I like about Morgan Wallen's mullet is he did kind of take it to that extra mullety place, like, you know, really shaving the sides off.
Yeah,
and like there's no confusing what that haircut is. It is a mullet.
Yeah, all this talk about mullets started with Morgan Wallen, who is next in the countdown at number 4, Chasing. Morgan Wallen up 3 to number 4, Chasing You. My co-host is Blake Shelton, coming to us from his home in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. We now come to your song in the countdown, a duet with Gwen Stefani. And as I understand it, this song actually went to Gwen first.
It did. Shane McAnally, who's a co-writer on the song, was at The Voice. And he came over to my trailer in between commercials or something, and he knocked on the door and he said, hey, man, I got a song I really want to get to you. I said, man, I got to run, send it to Gwen. And he did. He sent it, and I think the very next morning we listened to it. I was like, wow, that's a great song. Play it again. And there was something special about it. I instantly thought it was a song that, even though it probably wasn't in my mind, it was written about Gwen and I couldn't believe how perfect it was for us. And at some point along the way, we were at her house, and I was playing it again. And I got to thinking, wow, you know, this song would be incredible to have Gwen on with me. You know, it's just built for something like that, you know, one of those event type songs. And so I turned the song off and I said, hey, why don't you record this with me? And she goes, oh my God, I was just sitting here thinking, I wish he would ask me to record that thing with him, you know. And so the rest is history. We ended up recording it here in Oklahoma at my little vocal studio that I have here, and we had a blast doing that. So the whole project has just been fun.
Gabby Barrett up 1 to number 2, I Hope. Blake Shelton is my co-host. He's coming to us from his home in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. What else are you doing? You binge watching anything on TV? I'm
really proud of what I'm about to tell you. There has been very, very little television watching going on. You know, in the mornings, we'll turn it on for maybe 30 minutes just to kind of get the lay of the land of that day, the news, and then turn it off. And, the kids are homeschooling. So that's going on. We got 5 kids in there homeschooling between Gwen's kids and her brother's kids. And then after that, it's playtime, and Kingston, Gwen's oldest son, came to me yesterday and he said, Blake, can I have ducks? I said, yeah, I'm not building you a duck pen, that's up to you. And I looked out there and he had post hole drivers. He was building a pen for ducks. So there's something like that going on every day, right up until 8 o'clock. As it gets dark, we eat dinner and it's pretty much bedtime after that.
I just
crazy.
couldn't imagine Blake Shelton going to bed at 8 o'clock. But that's okay.
Things are changing out here.
I get it. No, I thought you might be enjoying this time off a little bit. I know what you mean, though. Now, let's get on here to the number 1 song in the USA, and it belongs to Brett Young, Catch. I wasn't Young, his 6th consecutive number 1 catch. And there they are. The top 30 country hits in the USA is compiled by Country Air Check. We've been counting it down with Blake Shelton, who is in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, at his compound there. And of course, if folks want to just kind of keep track of your schedule, they can go to blakeshelton.com.
I'm sure it's pretty blank at this point.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. And of course, we'll remind folks that among the other things you will be doing is The Voice. And we don't exactly know, but it's Mondays on NBC TV. So tune in to see how you guys handle doing all this stuff from various locations around America, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think Kelly's up in I think Montana.
Yeah.
And I'm here. I don't know where the other 2 are. We're all doing it from our house or wherever we can be.
Well, again, thanks for the time and stay safe.
You too, buddy. It's good to hear your voice.